Anatole France was born in 1844 in Paris, the son of a bookseller whose reputable bookstore was known for its books and papers on the French Revolution. It was also known for the fact that many notable authors and scholars of the day would frequently visit this library. And so young Anatole grew up around books most of his life and around these kind of people and in this kind of environment. And so it would be safe to say and easy to assume that young Anatole would probably blossom into an intellect. And he did. He eventually became one of the foremost poets, journalists, and novelists of his day. He had such bestsellers as Penguin Island, The Gods Are Athirst, and Revolt of the Angels, none of which I've read, but hope to soon. And he also received the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1921. He was so respected that he was oftentimes referred to as the ideal French man of letters. That's who Anatole France was. But he died in 1924. And in 1925, Time magazine released a small article about his death in the previous year. And they said that, as with any great Frenchman, when they die, scientists love to remove their brain, examine it, and then talk about it forever. But they made a startling discovery, something that changed their minds, no pun intended, about how they thought of things. And so when they took out France's brain and weighed it, they found it to weigh only 1,017 grams. Now, the average human brain weighs 1,325 grams. That's roughly 3 pounds. Anatole France's brain was actually smaller and weighed less than the average brain. Why does that matter? Because the prevailing thought in that time was that the more intellectual you were, the smarter you were, the more your brain must weigh, the greater the volume and the mass of your brain must be. And this turned out to not be true. It's actually smaller than the average brain. Now, to correlate that with somebody else's, there was a Russian novelist by the name of Ivan Turgenev, if I'm saying that right. And his brain weighed 2,021 grams. That's almost twice the size and weight and volume of Anatole France's brain. So you can see the perplexing the problem they had on their hands at that time was now they have to change the way they think about brains. This is where we get the term highbrow and lowbrow from. I don't hear it used as much anymore, but it's an adjective that still gets passed around. Highbrow means it's somebody with a bigger head, higher forehead. It means it's the assumption that they must be smarter. And a person with a smaller head or a lower forehead must not possess as much intellect. But we know that's not true. In fact, it almost seems absurd, right? But you have to remember that brain research during that time was in a very underdeveloped stage. And neurologists today will still tell you that there's a lot they still don't know about the brain, that they're still finding out all the time. But here's just a few things that they do know about the brain, just a few little fun facts, and you can share them with others if you like. Now, here's what scientists do know now about the brain, and that is that the brain the brain size has very little correlation to intellect. But we've already talked about that in this video. And the second is that among mammals, the male brain is usually larger than the female brain. But as we know, that doesn't mean they're smarter. And every woman watching this video right now is telling you, I could have told you that. And then number 3, the human brain continues to grow to its peak size into the 3rd and 4th decade of life. Isn't that interesting? Your brain hasn't stopped growing and until you've reached that time of life. Now, number 4 is that the brain to body mass ratio is only 2%. So that's pretty much a standard ratio that you can count on. Number 5 is that some people think at different rates than others. All right? Some people think at different rates than others. Some people understand ideas and adapt to new experiences and environments differently from one person to the next. How you perceive the world might be different than the person who's sitting next to you. And oftentimes we look at somebody who's processing information a little more slowly as being slow or dumb, when in fact they might not be. They might just have a different way of filtering things and might be reserving their opinion and their thoughts on the matter until they have mechanically thought through the whole thing. But this is where people become very judgmental of others, and not just in a mental way, not just in a mental perception of somebody, but in all ways. We tend to look at others, we tend to pick up visual cues, physical cues, and make assessments. So what's the takeaway from all this? The takeaway I've written down for this, and I had to write it down because I wouldn't get it right if I did otherwise. So here it is. False assumptions are often made assigning a level of intelligence to individuals based on misunderstood verbal, visual, and physical cues, such as the highbrow and the lowbrow example. Intelligence can be measured, yes, but don't let anybody else's ignorance, unfamiliarity, and abusive nature determine your performance threshold and mental well-being. Now, the wrap-up for this is, it's okay being different, and it's okay with being different. Don't let others drag you down. They might be judging you wrong. And don't pass your criticism on somebody else before you really know the whole story. It may be that you're picking up on the wrong cues. You see, people oftentimes looked at someone's head just to see if they were smart or dumb. But we know that's all wrong, and it seems absurd. But in time, in the future, how many other things we discovered that were wrong about what we were saying, what we were thinking? And then we're going to look back and we're going to be the ones that feel stupid. And sometimes it just takes time for people to prove what you consider something to be of worth. All right. I hope that was of some value to you. I hope you liked it. If you did, hit the thumbs up and subscribe and share it with your friends. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.